I think my mom thought my life in Tallahassee wasn't good.
Your mom ever called Dan Markel any disparaging names around this time frame?
She did.
Okay, including piece of
Yes.
And you testified on direct that anybody in your family that had anything to do with it should be held responsible. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And that includes you, doesn't it?
Anyone who's responsible.
Oh, Wendy, should she be worried? This morning, a resurfaced podcast is putting Wendy back in the spotlight, revealing intimate details about her relationship with Dan Markel. And the murder case for 10-year-old Jayden Spicer is moving forward. His mother and his stepfather pleading not guilty. So what will the couple's defense be? Plus, a fatal fetish encounter. An OnlyFans model denied bond after being accused of murdering a client during a fetish session. But is she a criminal? We'll discuss. Plus, will one of the defendant's friends tip the scales of justice in the kiss and tell murder trial for defendant Samantha Krebs? It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Monday morning to you, my friends. I'm Julie Grant, and this is Opening Statements. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. I missed you on Friday and over the weekend, and it's great to be back with you today. We've got an outstanding show planned, so let's get it started. Grab that cup of coffee. It's time for my opening statement. Mama Donna melted down like a cranky 2-year-old when she was hit with a harsh reality that she is, in fact, a killer. She's no better than the gangbangers, even though she probably thinks she's better because she's rich and educated and didn't get her hands bloody. The law is a great equalizer. It recognizes that devious Donna's behavior in plotting, planning, and financing Dan Markel's murder was every bit as illegal, immoral, and reprehensible as what the gangbangers did in shooting him. Keep on crying, devious Donna. Your tears won't change what you, your son, his girlfriend, and your gangbanger helpers did in murdering your grandchildren's father. 5 killers now behind bars. But is that complete justice for Dan Markel? I don't think so. I think more Adelsons ought to be waking up very worried this morning. Weak memory Wendy and hubby Harvey better have very good lawyers on speed dial, because if I were those Florida prosecutors, I would be chomping at the bit to prosecute them next. Both of them. During Donna's trial, we learned that Wendy was seemingly trying to set up her boyfriend to look like a suspect. She was keeping tabs on his travel and on Dan Markel's. It also appears she manufactured an alibi with what seemed to be a deliberately broken television repair appointment. And we learned there's really no good reason she needed to be driving out of her way by the homicide scene that day, but never bothering to call and ask if Dan or her children were safe. The evidence also established that hubby Harvey was having phone calls with one of the gangbangers. Catherine McBanois suddenly has Harvey's car, and the checks to her were all coming out of his dental practice account. Harvey also accompanied Mama Donna to Charlie's house to make the literally laundered money drop on the night of the murder. Tick tock. It is time for complete justice for Dan Markel. May God bless the Markel family, his lovely parents Phil and Ruth, and his boys, who should have their wonderful dad with them today. Let's hope Phil Markel's wish comes true and devious Donna lives for 120 years. That's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
You mentioned he was acting crazy. What was he doing?
When he ex-manic, he assumes I'm cheating on him, and everything I say is a lie, and everything in his reality becomes kind of like a delusion.
Okay.
In Wisconsin, we've got the kiss and tell murder trial for defendant Samantha Krebs resuming this morning at 9 a.m. The state could be resting as soon as tomorrow. In California, we've got defendant Maya Hernandez, the accused lip filler child killer. She's going to be back in court for a trial readiness hearing. She's the mother accused of her baby Emilio's hot car death, and that's going to begin at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And in Tennessee, we've got a hearing expected at 10 a.m. for defendant Brandon Isabel. He's accused of murdering his girlfriend, Danielle Hoy, and then tossing the couple's 2-year-old baby Kennedy into a river. Right now, let's turn to our top story for you. Should Wendy Adelson be worried? Her mother, Donna, now awaiting her sentencing after being convicted of murdering her former son-in-law, Dan Markel. There's a resurfaced podcast that is swirling around online where Wendy Adelson can be heard detailing her relationship with her former husband, Dan. Podcast pretty revealing. This is from Writing Class Radio. This is a podcast all about writing, and Wendy is writing about her life as an exercise in the class. Let's take a listen to some of the best moments.
10 months ago, someone killed the father of my children. First we got divorced, then he got murdered. In casual conversations, I don't know whether to call him my ex-late spouse or my late ex-spouse, except that late ex-spouse sounds like latex spouse. Last July, someone, and we still don't know who, shot my ex-husband point blank in the back of the head as he pulled into our garage after driving our then 3- and 4-year-old sons to preschool.
Oh, there's more. There's more to talk about. Let's bring in a former student of Dan Markel. She's a practicing criminal defense attorney now in Florida. Joanna Nieves is with us, and South Carolina solicitor Kevin Brackett with us as well. Good morning to you both. Joanna, just first want to say, I know you've been on our network before, but never with me, so I'm very sorry for your loss. I know this case is also personal to you, and you can give us legal analysis as well, but with Dan Markel being one of your former professors, what do you think when you hear initially that audio from Wendy making that tasteless joke about a latex spouse?
Good morning, Julie. I think you hit it right on the head. It's tasteless. I don't think that for the sake of a giggle in a document that you're writing, that it's appropriate to do it. I think that it reveals more about her as a person and the character that she has, and that if prosecuted, it is something that's going to be on repeat and looped throughout the jury trial if it ever gets that far. Because I think that if you've got any sort of compassion, whether he was her ex-husband or not, you're not going to make these callous or tasteless jokes at his expense. And I think it exposes the underlying feelings that she had for him, or the lack thereof.
Right, Joanna. Yes, you're exactly right. The lack thereof. And she talks about that in the podcast. In fact, we have a clip on that point exactly. Let's roll it now.
We married when I was in my mid-20s, when I thought I could cheat the system and marry a man I lacked passionate love for because, hey, didn't that die anyway during marriage? I saw his intellect and big heart and thought he would make a wonderful father for my children. Our marriage dissolved after the children arrived, as the loneliness of being married to someone that didn't view me as an equal crept in.
Kevin Brackett, your thoughts on what Wendy is saying here?
Wendy sounds very self-involved to me, Julie, like the world revolves around Wendy, and it's all about Wendy all the time. Reminds me of several people I've prosecuted over the years. How she could talk, that she had those thoughts about him before he was murdered, before she even married him, that she kind of made this calculated assessment like, well, I don't really love him, but what the hell, I'll go ahead and marry him because he looks like he'll be a good dad and a good earner, whatever. But then to talk about him like that after he's killed, I mean, she's not giving any thought, obviously, to how she sounds to other people. And she's not giving any thought to how her children, when they grow up and hear these kinds of things, are going to respond to it, because it just sounds callous. I mean, latex, I didn't love him. What kind of work does he do? Well, he's not working much now. That sort of thing. These are all just really cold and sort of, just reveal a personality that's devoid of any character at all, Julie.
You said that so well, Kevin. I think you're exactly right. You know, and she chooses her words so carefully, maybe too carefully. I made myself a note when I listened to the podcast twice over the weekend, and when she's talking about how she didn't know about Dan's murder. And remember, we know the plan with her, right? You know, she goes out of her way to drive that direction that day, and she goes to a liquor store and goes to meet a friend for lunch. And we know that there were closer liquor stores to her house. We know that, you know, she's seeing the crime scene tape and all the emergency vehicles, the lights, everything, but never bothers to check on Dan or her kids, right? She says, when she's discussing about his murder, she says, quote, I only found this info when? I only found out this information when I was accosted at my lunch, she says something, I'm paraphrasing now, by police who interrupted my luncheon date to question me, or I think she used the word interrogate me. No, why is she saying I only found about this when? Why is she explaining like as if she's qualifying there? Isn't she, Joanna, qualifying like to say, you know, I was at lunch when police came in would be you would think the way somebody who had no involvement would say it, but perhaps somebody who may be allegedly trying to cover tracks might slip that word only in there. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a preemptive strike. Here's the thing. We know that she's a writer. She's practicing in a writing class. I think that she's thoroughly thought about all the things that she's going to say and is very intentional with the words that she chooses. We know that she's intelligent enough to secure a position as a law professor, and she's an educated lawyer. So I think that the wordplay and the way that she's dancing around things is very contrived. And we can't look past that in terms of her involvement. I mentioned before on one of the episodes, I do think that this is one of those cases where the prosecution has knocked dominoes down bit by bit. And I don't think that Wendy is off the hook. Will it be a difficult case to prove? So many cases are, but I don't think that we should give up hope at this point for complete justice for Dan.
Yes, I love what you're saying there, Joanna. You're right, not an easy case. Neither was Charlie's, neither was Donna's, as you both know. Speaking of Mama Donna, Wendy talks about her. Let's listen.
She is selfless, generous, loving, and beautiful. She thinks she is fat. She once got turned down for Weight Watchers because she didn't have enough excess weight to be admitted to the program. She thinks she is stupid. My mom, who won the New York Spelling Bee for middle schoolers when she was only in the 6th grade. I'm so many of the things I am because of who my mom is and who she wants me to be.
Oh, I wonder how Donna's doing this morning. All right, we have about a minute left, so I want to ask both of you, who else you think should be charged here? Starting with Wendy. Kevin, your thoughts on her, please.
Well, I mean, I don't know everything they know, and I don't think they've shared everything they know. The prosecution, that is, they've done a great job up till now. But of course, some of the evidence they might use against her would not necessarily come in against the other folks. So I hope that there's still more to come. But I think Wendy is definitely high on the list of people that need to be charged if there's sufficient evidence to do so. Also, the father clearly had some relationship with the individuals who were responsible for the murder, talking to the trigger man. So I absolutely think that the father needs to be looked at very hard as well.
Kevin, thank you for that. Joanna, who do you think needs to be charged next, if anyone?
I agree. The same. I find it hard to believe that this family was able to do things while keeping Harvey and Wendy insulated from knowing what was going on. The approach is very transactional. When we hear the way Wendy talked about, well, I wanted to have kids with him and I thought he'd be a good father. It's a transactional thing. So why wouldn't his death also be transactional like that? And I think that she is a part of it. I do think Harvey had knowledge. He's, been married for several years, and he was on the flight on his way out of the country. So I think that there's more to come. I have more thoughts on it as well in terms of what the prosecution may be waiting for. But obviously, in my opinion, they wanted to get information out of Wendy for all of these other trials. They gave her the use and derivative use immunity for her testimony, but I think that they can still prosecute her, and then there's more to be seen that we haven't even laid eyes on yet.
Yes, yes, Joanna. And before we have to let you go, would you share with us a little something about Dan Markel that people may not know? Something about him, some memory you have, anything that you think people would appreciate as we remember him?
Sure. I think it's hard to say what they may not know because his life has been so exposed at this point, but he was a very, very smart person. That's one thing I remember, being intimidated in that intimate class. It was an advanced level class, and being intimidated by his breadth of knowledge. And so it was a great loss for the FSU College of Law.
And Joanna, thank you for that. Well, look how well he did. You know, you're living proof of that, how he was able to influence you and shape you, and what a great career you've had. Thank you so much for coming on this morning, Joanna. I hope to see you soon. Kevin's coming with us, and please do the same at home. You can go get some more coffee. I'm going to do that. We're going to hit a break. When we come back, here's what's next.
You can see Michael Dale. He was, at that point, his hands or his wrists had been bound, and he had black duct tape over his hands, completely covering his hands. He was wrapped in saran wrap, his thighs, from his thighs down.
Was it just a deadly mistake? We're spotlighting the fatal fetish murder case out of California. Plus, the mom and the stepdad of little Jayden Spicer pleading not guilty. What might their defense be? We'll talk about it when we come back.
Coming soon to Court TV.
A Microsoft executive gunned down. Now his ex and her new husband are charged with his murder.
Brian Walsh, accused of murdering his wife, Anna.
It's very disturbing, very heart-wrenching.
A social media sensation, now a suspected killer.
Why do you have something against me?
She wrote a children's book about her husband's death. Now she's accused of killing him.
The high-stakes trials you don't want to miss. Coming soon, only on Court TV.
Welcome back. Now for what's trending in true crime. The parents of that little boy who was found buried in a shallow grave not far from his home in Kentucky appeared in court on Friday via Zoom. The mother of Jayden Spicer, Felicia Gross, and Jayden's stepfather, Joshua Gross, pleaded not guilty to the charges that have been brought against them. Felicia is charged with murder, while Joshua is facing complicity to commit murder charges. Both of them are also charged with false reporting, abuse of a corpse, and with tampering with evidence. Little 10-year-old Jayden Spicer was reported missing back on August 6th. You might remember us talking a lot about this case. And after a week-long search, the Kentucky State Police say that Felicia Gross confessed to them to giving her son sleeping medication, and then allegedly took him into the woods and buried him there in a plastic tote. Kentucky State Senator Brandon Smith gave us that information here on Opening Statements.
Like most people thinking about it, I assume that it's because she cooperated and did take them to his body, which I'm thankful for. This is something that she could have taken to her grave. We may have never found this baby. And it could be that there are other people involved, and maybe she, they're wanting to give her some room in order to, work with them if there were other people involved. But I'm not really sure. I know people are they're upset by it, they're outraged by it, and for good reason. But right now, we just have to trust the process and let these professional men and women do their job.
So during Friday's hearing, prosecutors filed some motions to obtain Jayden's medical and school records as part of their ongoing investigation. And so this morning, we're wondering, what could this couple's defense be? And they may have different defenses. We're recognizing that. A lot of people have been asking that question because of the information we know that mom related to law enforcement. But yet we have not guilty pleas from both of them at their last court appearance. Let's bring in our special guest to talk about this, criminal defense attorney Mario Gallucci and retired FBI special agent Jennifer Coffindaffer. Good morning to you both. Mario, let me begin with you with a defense question. What do you say if people are saying, well, wait, mom told the police what happened, what she did, how does she have a defense? What's your response to that?
So this case is in its infancy. I mean, they were just arraigned, and we're still awaiting an autopsy report. And I believe that the most important part of this case is going to be that autopsy report. She stated that she gave him sleep medication. So the defense here could be, you know, why is she giving him sleep medication? And I believe that's why they requested the school records. If the child has had a problem with sleeping or some abnormal physical problems, maybe the mother was trying to assist him and she overdosed him, and that was an accident. So the defense could be here, accidental overdose. And then when the child died, she panicked. She didn't know what to do. She figured she would get charged, and she made stupid decisions. So that the possible defense here could be accident. You know, I overdosed my child by accident. And that's why the school records and the autopsy reports in this case are going to be very, very important.
This is why we wanted to talk to you about this, Mario. Okay, so it would be important for counsel to say, we're pleading not guilty at this, but we have to wait and see so much more information, right? And then proceed accordingly. So based on what we learn. Agent Coffindaffer, let me go to you next on what we know right now and what we need to know. You were one of the people, I think I saw it on your Twitter account first. You're so great about following missing children cases. And here we are now. We've got two parents behind bars charged, but still more charges could come, as you know. What are the things that we don't know right now that are really standing out to you that you're anxious to learn as this presses forward?
Well, yes, Julie, there's so many things, and I think that those records regarding, to me, I'm looking at those records about the medical background and educational background. I want to see if there's abuse. Was there a trend of abuse with Jayden? When you look at those photos of him, he looks so gaunt and so thin. I think that that is what law enforcement is looking into. Were there signs of abuse this whole time? Did this lead to his death? I mean, Julie, he was put in a tote. Look at how big he is. Remember, we have abuse of a corpse charges. Was he somehow manhandled and were his bones broken to put in that tote? I think that also speaks to something I want to know.
Yes, Jennifer, thank you so much for saying that. I think so many people were so pleased to hear what you just said now, because you're wondering, did this just happen in a vacuum, or was there a history here with these parents? You're so right. Things need to be dug into, what happened in the home, and maybe the school records, as we report, maybe that'll provide an indication. Was he going to school? Did anybody see anything suspicious with this child prior to him going missing? Mario, let me ask you this. Some people in the community were not surprised that Felicia Gross allegedly had help from her husband, Joshua Gross. But we know Joshua's not charged with murder. He's charged with complicity to commit murder. What does that distinction tell you, Mario?
So it appears to me that they do not, that whoever's ever investigating this matter doesn't believe that the stepfather was responsible in any way for the death, but was responsible for everything that took place after the death. You know, the hiding of the body, the moving of the corpse, the coaching of the other children. So that makes him complicit in those things, but maybe not complicit in planning the murder, if it actually is a murder, or the accident, as I called it. So his charges are completely separate. It sounds like his charges all stem from everything that happened after the baby's death.
Mario, thank you for that. Jennifer, let me go to you on this next point. Felicia Gross apparently admitted to law enforcement to coaching Jayden's siblings before they were interviewed by police. What does that say to you as an investigator?
Well, this is very usual. In these types of cases, the parent or anybody who's responsible is going to try to coerce the people that she has control over to say certain items. We saw that in Donna Adelson just in the cell where she tried to write out what to say, right? So this is something that is actually very usable and usually happens. And why? Because she knows how important their testimony is going to be and how important it is for her to coerce it to make sure it's in her favor.
It's really helpful. Great discussion with you both. Jennifer Coffindeffer, I know we've got to let you go. You have other commitments. Thank you so much. Check out Jen's show, Break the Case, on YouTube. We'll see you soon. Mary, who's coming with us, do the same at home, please. Here's what's next on Opening Statements.
At one point, she says, maybe I should tighten your neck up, and it looks like she reaches down and kind of hooks her finger underneath the plastic around his neck and kind of tugs on it.
Is this OnlyFans model a criminal? We're spotlighting the fatal fetish murder case out of California. And a friend of the defendant and the victim testifies in the kiss and kill murder trial. Will his testimony tip the scales of justice?
Mr. Dale asking Ms. Ryler's dam to do certain things for him. He was asking her to buy boots and glue them on his feet with Gorilla Glue. He was asking her to buy and glue them in his mouth. And he also asked her to pour pools of Gorilla Glue into his eyes to glue them shut so that she was the last girl that he would ever see.
This morning, our spotlight is shining on a case out of California involving an OnlyFans model named Michaela Rylersdam. She's now a defendant facing murder charges after allegedly asphyxiating a man by placing a plastic bag over his head during what prosecutors describe as a fatal fetish encounter. Here's what the victim's roommate said about the day of the incident.
I could just hear him say, can we stop? I'll pay you a certain amount more money to stop. And that's when I realized that it wasn't a friend. He had no shirt on. It looked to be like a pair of sweats. And then from his feet to about his waist was wrapped in saran wrap.
Like clear plastic wrap?
Yeah. And then his hands were above his head, and they were tied up.
So this is helpful testimony that came in during Michaela Rylersdam's preliminary hearing just last week. This was her in the courtroom. She was bound over for trial, and she's being held without any bond on those murder charges. So the question we're asking this morning, is she a criminal who needs to be held until this trial? Or was this truly a sex act gone terribly wrong? Let's bring in our expert guest to discuss this. Criminology expert, author, and professor Dr. Debbie Goodman is with us, and so is Amanda Dames. She's a certified sexologist and a former professional dominatrix. Good morning to both of you ladies. So, Amanda, let me begin with you here, please. We know that with this trial, there are going to be conversations that come into case evidence about fetish, about dominatrix work. When you look at this case, having done that type of work and having expertise in this area, tell us what you see, please.
I see a client who had an extreme fantasy, but I think that anyone who was paying attention would know that this is not something you would actually do for someone. Any common sense would tell you, do not make it so that someone cannot breathe for minutes on end, don't block airways. And I see a dominatrix or a professional here who was throwing safety to the side and just doing whatever the client asked. And there needs to be a little bit of like, okay, here's the fantasy they're having, and here's how I can make it sort of real for them without actually fulfilling every request they have.
Sure. Amanda, tell me, when we heard that witness's testimony a moment ago, and I wrote down what he said he heard his roommate saying, can we stop? And I'll pay you to stop, were the statements he's saying he overheard his roommate making before his death. What, if anything, do those statements indicate to you in terms of whether there were any mistakes made by this dominatrix?
It sounds like this client wanted for this session to stop and was even willing to pay more just to get out of the situation. Normally, if you're practicing this type of work safely, you have a safe word that just means absolutely stop. If they hadn't set it up, that request tells me that this person wanted it to stop.
Appreciate it. Amanda Dames, let's take a listen together to what the deputy medical examiner, Dr. Deborah Barry, said at this hearing. So she was the one who did the autopsy on the victim, and here she's relating the cause and the manner of death. Here we go.
Essentially, there was a lack of oxygen to the brain because of the plastic wrapping around the head, leading to fatal injury.
How about the manner of death?
Homicide.
Manner of death, homicide.
Right.
What does it mean, homicide?
In forensic medicine, it means the death was caused by another person or the actions of another person.
Does that have to be intentional?
No.
What are other manners of death?
Natural, accident, suicide, and undetermined in the state.
Okay. And you determined not to classify this as accidental?
Correct.
Okay, the prosecutor clarifying there, as you saw Dr. Debbie Goodman making sure that the judge understood this was a deliberate distinction made on that autopsy report to not characterize this as accidental. Dr. Debbie, being an expert in the field of criminology, do you see any criminal intent on these facts? Tell us what you see, if you would, please.
Good morning. I see this, Julie, as a sexual homicide, a lust murder in which this defendant, Ms. Reilersdam, acted with such extreme and severe negligence and recklessness. She was really ultimately playing Russian roulette with Mr. Dale's life, and I feel that this wanton disregard for his health, his safety, his life, his well-being is absolutely characterized by the conduct displayed involving the saran wrap, the glue, the bag on the face, and he was in such a debilitating, incapacitated state that he couldn't even save himself. So I agree with the ME, and I think this is the right classification, and it is a murder.
Dr. Debbie, tell us, do you think that this defendant is a danger to society if she were to be given a bond before her trial?
Yes, Julie, if this is her type of work and she were to continue the work, we could have another fatality. So I am in agreement. I know it's a controversial case. Some, may think it's a fetish accident. I understand and respect if there's that alternate viewpoint, but I see it much differently. And I think that we have this excessive and extreme conduct, which would suggest to me that this individual's decision-making is so flawed and that the gratification in these sexual homicides and lust murders comes from the individual being in the power, control, and dominating role to where one would potentially allow a death to another. So I think it is being tried appropriately, and I would agree with the denial of bail.
Such great insight you both are offering us. Let's take a look at Michaela Reilersdam's business video. We have a look at kind of her advertisement for which she does.
This is the year of business. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, and we get that. I have never felt that everybody was meant to be a stripper forever. I know that this is something where you get in and you get out. You need people in your corner to help you grow. I did, and so I know what that means for our girls. I know what that means for our guys.
Okay, so that was just a little sample of her prior to the commencement of this case. And we know the judge denied the request for bond. She's going to remain in custody. So now we're looking forward to trial, forward to getting more information about how Michael Dale died. Amanda Dames, let me go back to you, please. Given your area of expertise with sexology and dominatrix work, what are some of the things that are top of mind for you that you're interested to learn about how exactly this death might have occurred during this paid-for session?
Well, I want to know what conversation happened beforehand. How did he communicate what he wanted? Where did it start? And what led up to how extreme the session got? I mean, as soon as someone is asking for like glue to be involved and just things that are not safe for the body, you kind of have to think, like, at what point did she decide, like, oh yeah, this is something I'm going to do? because common sense, as I said, was out the window. I'd be interested to know where the conversation started. Had they talked to each other before? It sounds like this was their first time meeting. And if there was any other type of work that they did over the phone that led her to think that this was something this person truly wanted, because it sounds like a disturbed request. And I would assume that the client was disturbed if they asked for it.
Excellent insight, Amanda. Tell me something. I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues about this, how my lawyer brain goes to, not all contracts have to be in writing. There can be oral agreements that are made, where someone promises something, a service, someone exchanges money with the other person. In this work, typically, are there ever written contracts, or are most of them oral agreements?
No, so it is mostly oral agreements. There can be written contracts, especially if you have a client who's a regular, but for the most part, it is all oral. You have like a discussion about what the person wants. You agree on some boundaries, usually a safe word, and then you just go for it.
I appreciate it, Amanda. We have a couple of minutes, I'm being told. Dr. Debbie, let me go to you next, please. In terms of, as we're getting ready for trial, we know there's lots of discovery out there that the public, is not privy to. I'm curious, what are some of the things that you're most looking forward to learning about as we move forward and the case is bound over in terms of how this occurred and what intentionality Ms. Reilersdam might have had with the acts here? What are some of the questions you have, please, Dr. Debbie?
Right. I would want to know, first and foremost, Julie, the fact patterns. I appreciate what Amanda said as well about a discussion preceding. This case also, by the way, reminds me of a case from decades ago that you and that your team and the courties may remember. It was called the Preppy murder case out of New York, whereby Robert Chambers, Jennifer Levin were involved in intimacy. She was strangled, and the defense was based upon this agreement of some type of fetish. Well, it ended up being a 9-day with the jury deciding they couldn't reach a decision on the murder charge, and he ultimately pled to manslaughter. So I'm just wondering about the actual fact patterns before, during, and after. I think that's very important. And also just the reasonableness of this defendant to understand, is it reasonable or unreasonable for an individual to be in a debilitated, incapacitated state where he could not even potentially save himself, even if he wanted to? And did she derive pleasure from the power, control, and authority that she had over him? If so, for me, it's murder.
Great questions you're raising here. This has been a fascinating discussion with you ladies. Another day, we'll pick it back up as this case is proceeding to trial. Amanda Dames, Dr. Debbie Goodman, thank you both so much. Hope to see you back soon. We're going to hit a break. When we come back here on Opening Statements, the state's case resumes this morning in the kiss and kill murder trial for defendant Samantha Krebs. Her friend took the stand last week, and we're wondering, will his testimony tip the scales of justice?
Did you ever tell law enforcement that Samantha looked at you and said, just tell the police he stabbed himself?
She did say that.
He kisses Joy and says, sorry, I love you. Was this an accident or murder? And that is where the truth begins to get twisted.
The Kiss and Kill murder trial. Trial coverage today on Court TV.
Brian Walsh, accused of murdering his wife, Anna.
She wrote a children's book about her husband's death. Now she's accused of killing him.
A social media sensation, now a suspected killer.
Welcome back. A mutual friend of the victim and the defendant could be tipping the scales of justice in the kiss and tell murder trial of Samantha Krebs. She's accused of stabbing her fiancé to death in July of last year. Joey Carnot was found dead inside of the apartment that the two of them shared in Appleton, Wisconsin. And Krebs's friend, John Pfeiffer, took the stand again on Friday under use immunity, meaning he won't be prosecuted for what he says on the stand in this trial, as long as he's telling the truth. Now, Pfeiffer talked about what Krebs told him after Carnot was found dead.
Did you then tell law enforcement another version of what took place?
Yes.
What did you tell them?
I told them that Samantha was there.
What else did you tell them?
And that I told her to leave.
Did you ever tell law enforcement that Samantha looked at you and said, just tell the police he stabbed himself?
She did say that.
So Will Pfeffer's testimony about his one-time friend and love interest tipped the scales of justice. Let's talk about it. Back with us for the final time this hour, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Mario Gallucci and solicitor for the 16th Judicial Circuit of South Carolina, Kevin Brackett. All right, Kevin, tell me your thoughts on this guy testifying against Samantha Krebs and maybe his motivation behind it, please.
Well, I think he's caught himself and found himself in the trick bag here a little bit, Julie, because I mean he's given so many different statements, and now he's looking at himself getting into trouble because he's lied to the police. So I think he's finally decided that maybe the thing to do is to come clean. But the question is, how clean is he coming? Is he really coming clean or partially clean? A guy like this, you just never really know. Because, I think he says whatever is most useful to him at any given time.
I think you're exactly right, Kevin. Mario, how convincing did you find Pfeffer as a witness?
So it was interesting to me that he was just given use immunity as opposed to full transactional immunity. So although he can't be prosecuted for what he says on the stand, he could still be prosecuted for what he did, lying to the police to false statements. So as a defense attorney, that's where I'm going to hone in on, that he still could be prosecuted, that he was on drugs that night. I believe he was taking methamphetamines or something, and he lied. And if you lie once, you're a liar. So, the jury is going to hear a charge that, goes to the credibility of a witness, and his credibility is at stake here. The prosecution wants to use him, though, because he has good things to say. If you believe him, then he's telling you that she wanted him to cover it up, that she was not distraught when he was there, that she was coming up with a cover story. So those are all very important things for the prosecution. So it's kind of going to go both ways. I'm interested to see, cross-examination by the defense of him on the immunity agreements and also on his lies.
Yes, Mario. Let's take a look at John Pfeffer on body camera footage describing the crime scene.
I had 4 missed calls when I pulled into the parking lot from Samantha. Didn't think much of it. I just walked in the apartment, hit the buzzer. She buzzed me in. Walked into the apartment. Joy was laying on the linoleum in the kitchen. She looked at me dead in the eye. She said, "Just tell the police he stabbed himself."
And the police are going to believe that? Kevin Brackett, what do you think?
Well, it's funny. The first thing I thought of when I heard that might be their defense out of the gate, or their scheme to get her out, because he clearly was sympathetic to her, trying to help her out initially, but how he thought that was going to work as opposed to self-defense, because the guy was delusional. He was off his meds. He was on meth. So, they could have come up with a better lie than that. But I think, at the end of the day, that has a little bit of a ring of truth to it, because he has no motivation to say that. It doesn't really help her. It sounds bad, because who stabs themselves as a method of suicide? I guess people cut their wrists, but stabbing yourself in the chest, kind of a hard way to go. So I don't, again, he's just kind of these take him for what he's worth witnesses. There'll be some things in there that correspond and are corroborated by other witnesses that I think the jury will find believable. And overall, there'll be some value in his testimony. But as a witness overall, he's just sort of a disreputable character that's in the cast of the prosecution, that you kind of take him for what he's worth.
Mm-hmm, exactly. This guy, it'll be interesting to see what kind of weight his testimony will carry with that jury. A great insight from you both, as per usual. Mario Gallucci, Kevin Brackett, it's been wonderful having you both on the show today. I know you have to get to court. You guys have cases to win. We're so grateful for you. We'll see you soon. And we're so grateful for you at home. That's it for opening statements. We'll be right back with Court TV Live.